So why are these the enemy? What happens when we eat this stuff is actually quite scary. These are getting highlighted because I just went in the cupboards and found them. When I was in primary school, I was a little bit on the chubby side, and I had to what the kids at the time referred to as moobs. Moobs, for anyone that is not familiar, is man boobs. As we know, men are not meant to have boobs, but I did when I was in primary school, and the kids at the time made me aware of it. Secondary school sort of dropped off a little bit. I was introduced to football. I was introduced to a round thing called football. And what happened is I ended up dropping a bit of weight due to playing football. And because I was quite good at it, I ended up getting quite popular. Fantastic. Now, after that, going into college, about 18, 20, got chubby again. Got the moobs back, as they say. And yeah, not a good period of my life. What's taken me about like 22 years to understand is the process of how to stay in shape when you don't have incredible genetics. Why are processed carbs so bad for us? First of all, the body is not designed for them. So they've been manufactured and designed over time. Carbohydrates were not a thing, and now they are. Now, when I'm talking about carbohydrates, I'm talking about processed, okay? So fruits, honey, vegetables come under carbohydrates, but they are more of a good carbohydrate that come from the earth. Now, the processed carbohydrates, like our friend salt and vinegar here, is the stuff I'm talking about when it comes to carbohydrates. How much battery have I got? What I've done is I've created this cycle of what happens. We eat carbohydrates. Carbohydrates increases our insulin levels. So insulin is a chemical we already have in our body, which increases or decreases based on what we give it. Is the psychological attachment to sugar and glucose. So what happens is, go back to the start. We eat carbs. Fantastic. Actually, not fantastic. Eating carbs increases our insulin levels. When our insulin levels increase, so does our desire for carbs, going back to the psychological thing. So we've increased our desire for carbohydrates. Now, what's happened when we increase our desire for carbohydrates? Well, then we eat more carbohydrates. When we eat more carbohydrates, we have a lack of nutrients. We go into a nutrient deficient zone. In a nutrient deficient zone internally, what does our body do? It craves more food because we're lacking nutrients. So then what do? We eat more carbs, or we eat more food. And it's not the actual carbs that are making you fat. It's not the actual carbs that are making you put on body weight. No. What's making you put on body weight is this process making you desire more food. Are you with me? Stay with me. And this took me a long time to figure out. I'm trying to explain it in 10 minutes. Have you ever had a day where you've actually eaten quite a bit? Like you might have had a pizza and a this and a that and whatnot. And it's like nighttime. And you're like, what the flip? I'm still hungry. Now that doesn't make no sense. How can we go past our calorie target and still be hungry? It doesn't make sense. It tells you it's not about how much we eat. That's not what it's about. It's about what we're eating will contribute to how much we're eating. The reason why you can eat about 20 packets of these is because there's no nutrients in them. And what happens after you've eaten 20 packets? You've hit your calorie intake for the day and you're still hungry. Now, if over a long enough time frame, we continue to overstep our calorie intake, what happens? Moves. In order for us to decrease our insulin levels, we need to go through a little period, maybe a day or two, where we can just stay away from all of that stuff, just to reset. That's why fasting is spoken about so much, because of the reset it does for your body. So in this picture, I am not being intentional with my diet. I'm eating processed carbohydrates. I'm still eating meat, but I'm not being intentional about like the ratios of what I eat. I also want to allude to the fact that in this picture, I've been training. So I actually trained, I think this was like a year ago, semi-professional footballer, training 2-3 times a week, football, and like 2 times a week gym. This is someone that trains 5 times a week eating processed carbs. Now this is me, probably training similar amount, but just eradicating carbohydrates from my diet. And the carbohydrates that I was eating in this picture were fruits and honey. That's it. The beautiful thing about not having the best genetics, if you're someone like me, is that we have to be conscious about what we're doing. Consciousness with intention is knowledge. We end up learning a lot of stuff. In this picture, I'm training a similar amount, little bit more weights, little bit more strength training, and actually less cardio. I do less cardio in this picture than I was in this picture. In this picture, I was running like 3-4 times a week. 3 things happen when we reduce our carbs. 3 things happen when we eradicate processed carbs from our diet. Our insulin levels reset. So the desire for them goes away. So right at the moment, and I've been in this state so many times, I'm like, flip, I need sugar, I need some sweets, I need some crisps, something. That's because your insulin levels are high. So at the moment, genuinely, this doesn't interest me one bit. That's because for the last week, I've been doing carnivore quite strict, and my insulin levels have just dropped. The only thing I'm desiring at the moment is a plate of eggs and a plate of meat. Pause. The brain fog and tiredness that you think you have will disappear over a couple of days. In the middle of the day, you know that afternoon nap? It's not because we need an afternoon nap, it's because we have too much glucose and the body is in a process of trying to break down the carbohydrates you've given it, which is making us tired because the body's actually working internally. Third thing that will happen is you'll be full throughout the whole day. You'll be under your calorie target and way over your protein target, which means you'll retain your muscle and your fat percentage will decrease rapidly. Why I made this video is I wish someone explained this process to me when I was a bit younger, because these things, on a real note, these things have caused me so much upset throughout my life. Being out of shape, being called names when I was in primary school, looking in the mirror and not being proud. This is actually quite a sad story. I was a kid, I think I was like 8 or 9. I wore a t-shirt to the swimming pool because I was so self-conscious of what was underneath. And I completely resonate with people that aren't the happiest when they look at themselves in the mirror. I mean, they're carrying a little bit more fat than they would like to. It's such a difficult cycle to break. Not easy. It's definitely not easy, but this is one of the main things that's taken me a lot of time to really understand. If there's one thing, just try to decrease processed carbs from your diet. Your quality of life and how easy you find it to just be in better shape will just drastically increase. If I ever host like a summer barbecue and vegans or vegetarians turn up, we're gonna be having some strong words. And second of all, I might even cook you a normal steak and tell you it's a falafel steak